Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining. Thanks for coming out for our end of the quarter AMA. We have had a fun 3 months doing a lot of development work on the blockchain, and we wanted to host this space and answer any questions you might have as we are in the process of wrapping up the quarter. I see that a lot of folks are joining now. I have Tobias, Frag, and Ed is here as well. I'm trying to invite Ed up to speak. And Vin also. Vin, I've just sent you an invitation to speak as well. We'll look forward to kick things off here. I guess I'll just start with a very brief update of kind of current state where we are, and I'll ask Tobias maybe to join in and add anything else if I miss anything. But as you know, we had a number of large upgrades that we did this quarter, which included the 105 upgrade. We did the Binance whitelist with the ant handler and burn tax split that followed. We did the major 110 upgrade. We have now completed the Cosmos SDK upgrade, and it's going to be released for testing very soon, and the Tendermint upgrade as well. And the Cosmosm upgrade, which everybody's been particularly excited for to bring us to parity, where we were only supposed to do research into it for this quarter and provide some recommendations. We're actually very far along with that from a development perspective, and hope to deploy that and launch it early in the next quarter as well. So that's sort of where things stand. Tobias, do you want to maybe add anything to that?
No, I'm fine. I'm still a bit tired. I just woke up 5 minutes ago.
Oh, no worries. No worries. So today we're currently working in the process of putting up a Q2 prop. I'll be putting that up. Hopefully, I'm hoping later on today, if at all possible, on Agora. So keep your eyes out for that in the next day or two for Q2. And I mean, there's we've identified some really cool stuff I think we're going to try to do in Q2, as well as just the chain maintenance stuff. So I think that should be fun. So keep an eye out for that. Till, you want to add anything before we take any questions, or?
So actually, we had some smaller stuff, just let me have a recap. So we did the research into the WASM-D, and I'm actually working on it, and we actually integrated the new WASM-D into the blockchain, but we have kind of to figure out how to migrate from the old contracts to the new contracts. So we did a little bit more than research into the Cosmosm upgrade. So that's just what I wanted to add here. And I think we also had some minor issues, like I can't quite remember. I'm trying to recap here.
Law firm at first. I have a little thoughts about that. We are living in a time frame that regulations change almost day by day. And if we hire a law firm, I heard that it will cost $20,000 a month. $20,000 a month is a huge amount of money. Yesterday, I calculated how much money we have to spend left, and it's about 240K. That's almost not enough to even pay our developers. So at first we can't afford $20,000 for a law firm. Second, $20,000 is way too much. Third, a law firm is what you just said. It's for the developers and not for the community members. So why should the community members pay for the developers? The developers.
Let me
No,
just clarify one thing real quick here. The law firm is not for the developers. The developers do not individually need legal assistance. It's for the TGF.
It's for the TGF.
Well, hold on. Let me step in. So let me first give you some history as to why I even started down this road in the first place, and then where we are now. So back when we first started even tinkering with the chain, this was like months ago, maybe like a year ago, right? I just wanted to make sure that what we were doing was all above board, right? So I started engaging with different friends and family that that had legal experience, saying, is what we're doing okay? And then it sort of gradually ramped up to saying like, well, I can't give you legal advice. I can't give you legal advice. You need to talk to a lawyer. So eventually I started talking to like top tier law firms that have some experience in crypto in the space, and said, what is what we're doing okay? And across the board, let me just say across the board, everyone said, all you're doing is doing technological changes, improving the system. You're fine. Like there's no gray area here. Yeah, the United States is litigation sort of crazy. They can all, you can get sued for whatever, right? So, but for the developers working on maintenance of the L1, there's like no question. When it comes to like the SEC, I think the question comes in when you begin to be an issuer of tokens versus just working on the maintenance. And so when we're talking about like USTC or sort of re-enabling the market module, then there's sort of like a little bit of gray area. It's again, we're not sort of the initial issuers, so it's possibly not a problem, but there might be something where if the chain starts to mint based upon that market module, then is that okay? And so then the question is, well, maybe we should engage with a law firm. And then when we talk so I've been talking to a bunch of different law firms, and a lot of them are just like answering questions. So I would ask a question: is this okay? Is this okay? And they say, well, I don't know. Again, it's like constantly changing. Who knows what the regulations are or what they're going to be? And so really, it was more just like, I don't know, right? And then like when we talked to this particular law firm, the Horizons firm, they had a vision which was like completely different than all the other ones, sort of answering questions that we had. They were like, well, we've done this before. We've dealt with a lot of these. If you want to sort of move Luna Classic forward, we think this is the correct path. Now, I'm not saying this is the right path or not. That's why we put up that proposal, just to get some discussions out. And I think there's some very valid reasons as to why maybe we shouldn't do a Cayman Islands thing. And it's in terms of centralization, who's going to be in control, who's actually being represented. It's not for the developers. It's not for TGF. In fact, their recommendation is to dissolve TGF altogether and move everything to offshore. And so, like, I think there are definitely a lot of questions, and I agree that maybe when we had put up that proposal, it was a vision that the law firm had put forth as a way to move forward. It doesn't have to be that, and so I think there definitely needs to be more insight. No one can predict the future, but like there was, what was that, Sushi Swap, right? Sushi Swap put up a similar proposal to establish a DAO, and I think it was in Switzerland, and then a few months later they got sued, right? And so is by establishing a DAO, is that going to put a target on our backs? I don't know. But then you have the Oki DAO or whatever, who got sued, and it's everyone that holds the token, right? And so in that scenario, the firm is like, well, then you can centralize liability to one entity, not centralize power or influence. And so I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I think it's a discussion that we needed to have, and I think there's probably, definitely more information that needs to be had, right, to make a good decision. Anyway, that's sort of a long answer. Sorry if that went on.
So I just wanted to speak to some of the discussion about cost. With respect to cryptocurrency lawyers, I'm not sure, just so you're aware, it's a very specialized field, and the top cryptocurrency lawyers will charge $1 to $2 million for the launch of a project. So what we're talking about here is not a significant cost. Secondly, the community pool, it's been budgeted for as part of a holistic budget for a $20,000 spend in this quarter. We have the funds to do so. In addition, just to add to that, it is not a $20,000 per month charge. It's not a engagement. It's a limited time engagement that would be taking place with a certain specified scope of work. Now, to Ed's point, we may choose to, he posted the entire grand vision, all of the different pieces of advice. We may choose to do a smaller engagement where we say, hey, we've got this Ziggy proposal coming up. We've got these following things. There's some good information we'd like to find out. Like, as a simple example, I would like to understand exactly who has the ownership and rights to any of the brand assets for Luna Classic. Where does that all sit now? Ever since Terra Foundation Guard has sort of is no longer. Where does that all sit? So those are the types of questions that would be good to have answered. Should we have our own classic station? Should we separate everything from TFL? Nothing. We have. I highly respect everybody there, but from a legal perspective and with the SEC, what's the legal stance on that? And those are the types of questions that we need answered in order to be able to move forward in the best way. And to Ed's point, yeah, I think there's further discussion to be had. But in terms of the other thing to add in terms of community pool, and there's actually a proposal that talks about the split. I know there was one recently that wasn't overly well received, so I might not be offering a popular opinion here. But the blockchain will have expenses, right? Just like any household, and we need to make sure that the money we've got coming in, the income for the blockchain, is able to meet our basic expenses. We were very lucky that TFL paid the bills, and our hydro bill and our gas bill and our every, with the LCD and stuff for several months, but as a blockchain, we need to be able to stand on our own. So we do need to look at that, at the amount of funding that's coming into the community pool to be able to afford all of those different types of components. But yeah, I just don't want there to be an impression that we're going to necessarily have a, where we end up with a $20,000 a month spend. One month could be $20,000, another month could be 5,000, for the advice we need. It's a similar way that we do it's by proposal. It's an engagement. It's a limited scope. And then what's completed, you move on to the next piece of scope. But I am of the opinion that if we're going to be tackling USTC, that to navigate those waters, you absolutely cannot do so without some level of legal consultation.
Okay, thank you. Then the next thing, you posted a poll on Twitter yesterday, of all places. At first, I don't think that's the right place to put a poll. And the second thing is that you are not the right person to put a poll on Twitter. And I think
Why not? Why am I not the right person to put a poll on Twitter?
Because you are personally involved in this situation. You might have a hidden agenda where you can put the poll forwards to. And the last thing is you can buy lots of bots on Twitter, so I could vote endlessly on a point that I would like the direction going to. So Twitter isn't safe to put a poll on. I think I haven't watched the latest views, but I thought the direction the most people were going to was not with USDC.
So let me just jump in there. So funny you mentioned the bots. So the USTC, just so you know, there was a whole host of engagements that happened that the Community Oversight Committee did. Okay, and the Community Oversight Committee reviewed what is the number one priority for the Luna Classic environment. And I can tell you categorically, hands down, 100%, the data says it's USTC. There is no question about it. That's number one. You can guess what number two is. That came in very close. It was the reduction of supply or an increase in the deflationary action of the token. Now, yesterday, I was putting up the poll for fun. And I can tell you, it was the first time.
Not funny.
Sorry?
That's not funny. That's not
It
funny.
was funny. I was putting it up for some engagement, and with respect to some conversations I heard that were happening, that USTC wasn't, that we should go in some different directions, and so I just wanted to see what the sentiment was. It's just a sentiment gauge. And the funniest thing was that poll actually did get hit by a bot attack. It was winning 80 to 20% in favor of USTC. And in 1 second, 300 votes showed up on the side of gaming. And I was shocked because I've done other Twitter polls and I've never seen that happen. So to me, what that means is there's there's folks out there that may not want to see us go down this road, and they're really passionate about it the other way. So it's interesting that way. The good news is that our friend Elon has made it so that you'll have to be verified to be able to vote on Twitter polls in the next little while. So that type of bot behavior will not be possible. But you're right. And for scientific data, we should not use Twitter polls. But that's just where that is. But yeah, I can tell you for sure, USTC is this community's number one priority.
Yeah,
I think
because and you see that in the case we need to be rigorously scientific, then then we do it, because let me just give you the example that we actually polled people about the WASM upgrade and which route we want to go. And I think everyone has the right to put up a Twitter poll because it's a feature of Twitter, and you can't just forbid people to put up polls.
I didn't forbid to. I said I didn't say I forbid you. I say it's not very clever to do it, and in your position. In your position, it's not very clever, and the topic is not very clever, because if you see all the tweets I talked about yesterday, if you see most of the tweets from Luna Classic holders, they all want a repack, but no one knows the exact way how to do it. Even Duncan doesn't know how to do it. He has multiple ways, multiple visions about it. So, and they don't know how it will be affected our change. Sorry for my English. Have a little bit patience, please. And we had a talk with a lawyer a few months ago, and she explained how that you have to do it. You can do it, but it's very, very dangerous. And actually, none of the a few of the oh, come on. How do you call the pegged tokens of projects are
Okay, can I ask a question then?
Made it. So it's a very dangerous trajectory that you're going through, especially now with the SEC talking about staking, about everything.
And let me ask you a question and just cut through all this, please. There's many different views on how people should do stuff, right? But when you're in the process of doing any type of governance, you have to be able to figure out what the electorate feels throughout the process, right? Like, look at the US election cycle. Whenever there's an election, all the news outlets, they go into overdrive, right? They do all sorts of random polling ahead of time, before time, after time, whatever. Twitter is the physical equivalent of that. So if you feel that Twitter is a bad place for us to do sampling, to figure out what people feel like, what do you feel would be a better alternative to accomplish this?
Vote on Agora.
But that's for the actual governance process. We're talking about the stuff that goes into figuring out what to put into the proposal.
Yeah, but you saw what happened. It was botted.
No, but listen, I know all these things. I've lived in this space for 25 years. I am the OG troll. I've been doing online stuff since 1990, whatever. I know all these things. My point is that we need an outlet to be able to make something akin to doodle votes so we can gauge the sentiment, because as you very well pointed out, and as I've said many times before, you can't do highly specialized research on the town hall square, but you can gauge sentiment, right? And we're in the business of doing complex things, but overall, there's such a thing as change management. And if we don't do things that make our investors happy, it doesn't really matter what they accomplish. So in order for us to be able to, put up these proposals on Agora, we need some way to sort of poll the community and say, what is the prevailing wind here? We have all sorts of ideas. We have, like you pointed out, creative people like Duncan, who with proper guidance can also start doing a lot of beneficial things for the investors. But all of these things require constant engagement. Otherwise, what we will end up with is working for 6 months and then missing the target by, X amount because we didn't stay in sync with our investors. So again, just to sort of get back to the question and cut through all the noise, what do you feel would be a better approach for this type of polling if we should not do it on Twitter?
Well, at in the beginning there were 4, 5, 6 spaces VCs a month, educating VCs, and the last few months, 2 months, I haven't heard about from anyone something educational.
No, but I expect that, but that was not the question I asked you. But just to answer that as well, we have a very limited budget. We also have to balance, between how much do we put it into layman's terms and how much do the specialists just do the work. So I agree with you. We need to do outreach on those areas as well, but that's what we're trying to do with the dojo. That's what's called a peer-assisted learning strategy. We can get into that maybe in another AMA or another talk, but for me, the question is fairly binary here. If you don't feel Twitter's a good place to do polling, where do you feel we should be doing polling?
Well, Tobias, you spent lots of time putting out tweets. So if you put all those time together, instead of tweeting and have a little talk with the community, that would help very much.
But Anne, am I as an individual not allowed to tweet in my free time? Do you think I sit around and log hours for the investors when I do tweeting? Or am I just using Twitter as a way to gauge sentiment, right? So again, you have to try to understand why people use these tools and not just put it into your own subjective understanding of why we're doing it and then going like, oh, but you shouldn't be on Twitter because you can probably do something more productive. Well, I mean, doing what I do is
going totally the wrong way. This is totally the wrong way. This is going totally the wrong way. I just only said it wasn't a very clever way to put a poll on Twitter, and from there it started wrong. At first, you have to educate the.
Hey guys, I'm just going to jump in here. We do have to be mindful of time, and I think that the question and discussion, we could have a whole separate AMA about community engagement and sentiment. So,
exactly.
And I hope you understand. I do want to get to other answers before, or other speakers as well. So let's move on to the next question. Bull B&B, please go ahead.
Oh my God. And you were the biggest advocate of Luna Classic. What just happened? You're like literally being a big, you're criticizing big time, but it really doesn't make any sense.
It's going about
it's really difficult,
people.
Honestly speaking. You know what? I'm the biggest bag holder of Luna Classic. I don't chill it as much as I used to because I'm giving time to these guys. Because honestly, running a project is not easy. Okay, when the whole community is involved and where people start asking questions, why we are giving this much money, that much money, not everybody is on the same page just because of lack of education. But not everybody want to get educated as well. This is a thing. Like you can keep putting out all these educational materials and everything. People really don't want to learn shit. People simply want to do like when their bag's gonna pump. It's just that simple, And the question should be what you guys have achieved so far, rather than being like why you're putting Twitter poll can be. The Elon really mentioned a very good thing that the blue tick marks people will be able to participate in that. That's a good way to actually do the polling part. Not everybody will go and vote over the terror station, I believe. So let these guys give a chance. They're doing good.
You are going totally around my point where I was going to. This Twitter
you are
poll
going exactly the same way. You are criticizing the solutions and stuff, or you are paying their salaries, and these guys are not doing the job done. You're talking like that. When you're trying to find solutions, you give input in a much better way. You have taken 15 minutes, and all the discussion was basically about nothing. Zero. People are doing all these spaces and coming out with nothing, literally. What value you added to that? Honestly, I want to know what value did you add in these 15 minutes?
If you let me speak, then I will answer your question. I wasn't the one who was going forward on this poll thing. It was just something I want to mention and then leave it behind. But Tobias and Lungbin Arme, they were going mad about it. I was just going to say, if the community is not educated about a topic, and USTC is not something you can say, oh, well, let's do it, or not, don't do it. It's something you have to talk about for a long time before you make the decision to even think about it. And we haven't talked about it in almost, there hasn't been any educated space about the risks, about the goes and the no-goes. There hasn't been any Medium article posted about the goes and the no-goes. The community is only thinking, oh, let's repack, and then we will go to $1. And what will happen then? Then all the bull B&Bs will drag down the money, and it will go down again.
So I'm just Anne, I'm going to pause there, and I have 4 other requests for speakers to come up. Thank you for your questions. With respect to this piece, the question was, what should we focus on in Q2? That's what it was. And we don't have all of the risks yet, that because we haven't, we know some of them, but you have to do the assessment first. And we're just at the point where we're getting ready to do some assessments. There's going to be plans that people have. Duncan has one, Redline Drifter has one, other quants will have them. You have to assess the plan, you have to assess risk, you report on risk, and you talk about it, but we're just getting there. Anyway, I do want to be mindful of time, so I'm going to, Demon's had his hand up. Demon, please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to do a quick shout out to Tobias when he was talking about the repeg. I think he did a really big service to the community there with how he spoke about it, that it needs to be slowed down, and realistically we don't know the rules of the game that we're trying to play in right now, so we need to wait until different countries pass legislation about stable coins, so we even know what game we're playing and the rules of it. That's very important, and I think a lot of the community members, they didn't realize that, and that was one of the biggest points I was trying to make. Because a lot of times we go down paths like the 1.2% tax burn, 10983 proposal. We go down paths, and not all of the information is giving out, not all the pros or cons. And Tobias clearly stated what one of the cons are. If we fail at this, the blockchain's dead. People's investments are gone. There's not enough liquidity in the system. Bull B&B being one of the biggest holders, he could dump his bags and drain the liquidity out. Then what? We're all holding nothing. We've already lived through this. I've lived through this. I think Tobias was here before the DPEG. I'm not sure. Yeah, so he's lived through this. So thank you for coming in and telling the people what a real risk is to this. And Duncan did it as well.
Mate, real quick, first of all, thank you for pointing these things out. What I have not probably disclosed to the community is that I started my first crypto company in 2016. As part of that process, I worked with the Danish chamber lawyers. I worked with various officials to actually help a company I know successfully start a stablecoin project in a Danish regulatory sandbox. Because fortunately, EU legislation, which is largely derived from what is known as Project Berlin, is much more friendly for these things. And I just know from past history that we need to be very diligent about these things, but it's also our killer feature, which is why, I understand why people are asking for these things, but we just have to do it in a very, careful manner. And I do believe we have a bright future as an algorithmic stablecoin provider. I'm not going to use or as an algorithmic commodity token provider, because I don't want to use the term stablecoin, but how we phrase all this is going to have to be carefully crafted through, engagement, because legislation is also different from one area to another, right? And the US market is the biggest, so we want to be there, so we need legal help from there. So it's just going to take a long time. And I think a guy like Duncan is very well positioned to sort of maybe be the banner leader on that, to build consensus between all the intelligent people that I engage with all the time in the community, because we have lots of people outside the L1 and TGF who's also insanely knowledgeable. We just have to do this very carefully, because this is like the one shot. And then to speak to another point with regards to what Bull mentioned, first of all, thank you. The problem in IT development, and I've been doing this for 25 years, is that projects almost always fail and go over budget, right? Statistically speaking, it's 80% of IT projects that either go over time or over budget. So I very intentionally crafted this system of scope-based work, and I, very slavishly keep the devs oriented to that, because that's the only, unit for us to gauge if the investment was successful from a lean perspective. And that is what we as investors should adopt, right? That's basically a lean model. So we give somebody a bag of money, we agree on some goals, and if they accomplish them, then we might give them some more money. That is the only way for us to really do these things. And how the different teams, like the L1 team or the L2 team that TCE is going to help us bootstrap, or the Project Duncan team, how they work, that's all up to the investors to gauge at every quarter. That is the best process for doing these things. Getting into all sort of subjective, sort of soft areas of debating success becomes very hard to measure, if not impossible, right? Like, let's say a unit of measurement was we will have to teach everybody Path of the Apprentice in the L1 dojo. Well, that's a pretty big ask if we have, potentially 100,000 plus students that we need to sort of lift up. But anyways, USTC is not forgotten. There's a reason why I wrote the USTC repeg proposal many, many months ago. There's a reason why I fight back against things like USTN, because I understand USTC is a big part of the community. It is the most important feature long-term for our blockchain, but we have to very carefully navigate through the next couple of years of regulatory uncertainty, because the fact of the matter is that there are no clear regulations right now.
Agree. And I just wanted to add something to that. Just because something is difficult and has risk doesn't mean you can't start assessing and doing things in the test environment, coming up with different models, starting work. Because if we ultimately just said, oh, something's too risky, stop altogether, then in life we would never have any forward progress. You would never have, if you look at the approach for...
like connection is lagging.
Sorry?
I think it was you, Tobias.
You wouldn't have any.
Yeah,
you wouldn't have any forward.
Died. I just lost sound. Cool. I said.
Yeah, you wouldn't have any forward progress in life. We wouldn't have airplanes. We wouldn't have Elon Musk's rockets that can take off and land vertically. Like these things are USTC is arguably complicated. It's arguably complex, but there's ways to mitigate risk. There's ways to manage risk, and there's ways that you identify risk and ultimately use lessons learned to prevent things that happened in the future. So I think yes, the cautions are well heard and appreciated, and should be addressed, but at the same time we still need positive forward momentum. And on that note, I still want to there's a lot of hands, and we're probably going a little bit longer than I wanted to, so I'm going to start moving on. I think, I'm not sure whether it was, maybe someone can tell me, between Lunatic69, Ivan, and OG, who was first. I think, Rexy, you put your hand up after them. I'm not sure. Was anybody watching?
Yeah, it was actually me, but I don't mind. You can go to any, it's entirely up to you.
Go ahead, OG, then. Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I just wanted to echo sort of what Demon said to Tobias. I mean, he explained everything quite well. I am sort of struggling for time, so I'm sort of pushing, but I'm not going to stay for too long. I have got some questions, but I think I can sort of probably ask you maybe later if that's okay. Send you a couple of DMs. Is that all right, Lunkburn?
My DMs are always open. The real thing, one of the things we've really tried to do with the biweekly report and Twitter Spaces, and I've made it an effort recently to try to join in a little bit more, where I can, where we get some, where I get some more time in personal life. I will always want my DMs to be wide open. Please feel free to message me at any time with any questions. It might take me, a day or two sometimes to get back, depending on how busy things are. But we want to be as open a book as we can. So
yeah, no, that's cool, man. I mean, look, like I say, I'm in and out, and I'm doing bits and bobs in between. But I am going to I'll keep listening. I've been listening. I think the argument when Anne came up, I think that was a bit stupid. That went on for too long, and it was over nothing. And like I say, the questions that I have got, to be honest, they're not really that important, and I can follow up with you at a later date, Lunkburn. So just wanted to touch down really and just sort of say hello. And so I'll get back to you via DM. We'll go from there. But thanks for bringing me up anyway, and have a good day.
Okay, thank you for saying hello, and have a great day. Please go ahead, Ivan, and we'll make it over to Lunatics.
If you want to grab Lunatics real quick, I got about 4 flights of steps I got to run up real quick.
Sure. Go ahead, Lunatics69.
Hi, Lunkburn Army. How are you doing? So first of all, I want to say thank you to all the team, to Tobias, Rexy as well, Greg. I think Rexy is not getting enough love for providing infrastructure with all nodes and everything. So thank you for that. I want to add something to what Anne was saying, because you asked what the solution might be, and I proposed something on Twitter. If you look at the Agora for Luna 2, they actually have a feature where you can only post in the forum if you have, I think, staked or own a certain amount of Luna, and I think they use a wallet connect or something. So you need to connect your wallet to be able to post. I don't know if they have a poll feature so that you can make polls, but maybe we can do something like that in future, that you set up polls if we at some point update our Agora, and then you link to that via Twitter, then we have everything in one place. That would be one suggestion. And then I also want to say something about the USDC repack stuff. I kind of understand Demon's point. It's risky and everything. We technically could lose all of our investment, right? But I also think we have some sort of obligation to USDC holders, to the pre-crash holders, and the people that owned Luna pre-crash and they didn't add to their stack, right? Because I think for them, it's, at least from my opinion, it's the pretty much only hope, right, to get something back on their money. And I admit that I'm a risk taker and everything. I've bought a lot of Luna Classic. It would hit me hard if I lose it, but I'm fine taking the risk because I think we should try. That's what we're here for, in my opinion. And I also have a question for the team, which is about parity, because we have a dApp that wants to launch on Terra Classic, and it's a Luna 2 app. It's called Terra Poker. I don't know if you're familiar with it. And my question is, how far are we with that? If we finish Q1, are we going to be at full parity or not? Maybe I've missed that, but that would be my question.
Tobias answered that. Go ahead,
I guess I
Tobias.
can answer it again. Parity will arrive somewhere around 2.1 when we have our Cosmos VASM VM upgraded, right, or the VASM VM. So that answers the question with regards to the L2 developers. I also share your view on USTC in general. The reason why I'm pouring my time and a lot more energy than you guys are paying for my private network, pretty much everything I have into this, is because I believe we can make it worth even more than it was. And for me, I'm 43 years old. I don't have, the energy of a 22-year-old.
Damn.
So if I can spend the next 10, 15 years of time that I have using all my intellectual capacity, which is not insignificant, on fixing the problem for all the investors, my hope is that these investors will carry this so far into the future that I can leave my long tokens behind for my son. And then one day, maybe you guys will protect him the same way that I protected you, right? That's the way that I look at this. So overall, yes, we do have a fiduciary duty to one another. Maybe not in a legal sense, but at least at the moral sense. And for me, it's very much no man gets left behind. And this is also why I invest so much energy in people like Duncan and Vin and so on, because I know a lot of specialists. My cousin is the literal de facto authority when it comes to volatility in economics. He's a tenured professor at the Danish University and so on. There's no doubt we could hire a lot of outsiders who could come in with lots of smart ideas. But this is the Terra Classic family. What we have to do is we have to take our own people and lift them up selectively. We just can't do that in the way that Anne is suggesting, where we're lifting everybody. I truly wish that we could, Anne, but we don't have the money for it. And this is why we're looking more from a strategy like Long said. We every week we look at the CP, we look at the budgets, we look at the HR pool in the community, and we try to apply the resources and the time as best as possible. Because for us, I think all of us in the L1 team, this is almost a lifelong commitment. We feel more than just a need to go to work here to make money, right? I don't think why any of us are here, because we could get more money elsewhere.
So just a note, I need to move some people down that have already spoken, Demon. So I'm going to move you down.
I never even got to ask my questions. I was giving a compliment to the bias, but I can wait for others.
Okay,
you can just holler at me later on
I just want
Discord,
to add
bro,
some others.
if you have some questions.
Yeah, I just wanted the data from what Lunkburn was talking about when they did the polling, where the oversight did that polling, because I haven't seen it. And then I'd like to know what sources they used for the polling themselves, and then if there's data regarding that polling.
Yeah, for sure. So,
Lunkburn, you can take me down. I'm finished. Thank you, Tobias.
Okay, thanks. They used a whole host of sources, anecdotal, YouTube live spaces, interviews, community engagement, some Twitter polls, yes, that arguably were not manipulated, and ultimately that was the results are there. I can publish them in the end of quarter. If everybody wants, we can even do a much more secure poll like we did for the Community Oversight Committee, where it's limited. Limited by IP. We could do it so that you have to sign up for an email address. If we don't believe those results, but by and large, anyways, they are what, like I said, the top priorities kind of were, on, USTC, reduction of supply and additional, acceleration of the deflationary stuff. So what that means is basically more volume, which hopefully Rexy can help us with. And through the Terraport app, DApp, parity was important. So I mean, these things are things that people have been talking about for a long time. So that's sort of where that sits.
Can I just quickly intervene here? I just wanted to about the poll thing. Actually, so Anne suggested to use Agora, and also Lunatics Loonklover mentioned Agora, and I kind of thought that actually the Agora forum is still managed by TFL, or it's at least a TFL domain. And if you like Lunatics Loonklover, you can put up an issue for the Agora. And I kind of like the idea of having this poll feature in the Agora. And
can I just ask? Let me just first of all, I think I understand what you're saying too. We have a general problem from a security perspective in using Agora, which is that Dopon owns the DNS, so he could literally engineer any vote any way he wants. This is why we've actually been working with the architect to try to set up a new Agora where we can sort of, hand over ownership to maybe the TGF or the community.
I didn't know that.
I definitely agree that if I mean, first of all, I think maybe we're a bit too harsh on Anne here. I agree that Twitter, is probably not the best polling facility, which is why I honestly asked about it. But we do have different options, and I think we need to look at options that lends itself better to sort of, validation and data mining, right? And we actually have a tool in our Office 365 setup because Microsoft built a standardized polling tool called MS Forms, where we can do all sorts of magic permission-based things and so on. So there's many ways to go about this. But for me, I think the important thing here, which is one thing I really commended Duncan for last night when we had one of our sessions, was that, he was, I want to work scope-based. And that's really my sort of message to everybody here is that there's all sorts of things we can do, even at the practical level, like using another polling tool or changing our email provider. But we should only ever work on things that are approved within scope by our investors. That is the only way that we can guarantee that we spend the money that we have in the best possible way, right? So again, if people want us to use another polling facility, this is actually what we kind of wanted to set up the COC for, right? Engage with the COC, tell them that you don't like the current polling facility, and they will inherently bring that into scope throughout, dialogue with Steve and myself and so on. That is the process for creating change. It's not just saying, well, you didn't do that one thing. Well, it's not in scope. If it's not in scope, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter how important it is. If it's outside scope, investors don't feel that is something you should focus on right now.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, that Agora line item to look at that is in our Q2 scope that will be coming out. So it's already on our radar. So it's something we will look at, and the ability for somebody to do what was suggested is a great feature enhancement and a great idea to include in that. So yeah, I think that's great. Rexy, you've had your hand up for a very long time. Must be tired by now. Thank you for your patience. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just glad I ain't got some dumbbells in it. But yeah, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak, and thank you very much to the L1 team for everything that you do for the chain. I know you're rewarded for it, but also, it's I guess it's a bit of a labour of love as well. It's okay. So I'm going to say these are more kind of observations rather than maybe questions as such. And the questions I wouldn't expect you to be able to answer now. So kind of think of it a bit as, let's say, observations and maybe a bit of consultation as such. So my understanding is that when the L1 team is paid, it's paid through applications that are made by the Terra Grants Foundation. And as part of that, I kind of look at it, the Terra Grants Foundation, loosely speaking, is a bit like a council. And the L1 group, it's their responsibility to maintain the roads, if you like. And then you've got all the L2 developers and everybody else in the ecosystem that should make the most of that road network, generate profit with it, generate volume, and let's get this ecosystem really moving, okay? So in the context of using that as an analogy, with the TGF being loosely like a council, and I appreciate that it's starting to be kind of wound up as such, or it's proposed. There's funding that went to the TGF, and as part of a organisation that would work in that kind of context, there's certain expectations that I myself would, expect to see, and that's making sure that you've got appropriate methods in place for control, communication, consultation, and coordination of work. Now, I'm not saying that you haven't got these in place, but when you look at managing risk, and all this is about risk, risk comes in two different flavors. You've got pure kind of risk, and then you've got the opportunities, which are the good risks as such. And I think what I'm about to say are really the opportunities that I think it would do you good to reflect on as a broader organisation in terms of TGF and L1 to think how this could probably improve how you operate. So they're in no particular kind of order, the things that I'm just going to raise, but some of them are, I guess, to support Anne in some of the things that she brought up. She explained it and rated it in her own kind of way. However, I think consultation is really important. I think it's vitally important, especially when you're delivering services that are paid for by the community. Okay. And also, as Bull B&B pointed out, we're fortunate and unfortunate in equal measures that the community has a range of education levels and experience levels. Okay. That doesn't mean that uneducated people aren't right. It just means that they've got views based on different levels of experience and knowledge. Okay. So as part of that consultation element, so this isn't pointing fingers or anything like that. Earlier on in the let's call it the debate, Tobias pointed out that he thought that the legal coverage was for TGF. Lunkburn Army yourself said that a lot of it had been done in terms of consultation with the Community Oversight Committee. Now, DJ Trev published a video just a few days back to say that he knew nothing of this.
Sorry.
So where I'm coming from,
I didn't say anything about community oversight. Just wanted to clarify that.
You mentioned earlier on, I believe, but anyway, where I'm coming to is that maybe there's an opportunity here to have more of a thorough consultative process in place. And these things are quite easy to actually put together, really. Anybody that's got, a reasonable amount of experience in strategic management and that type of thing. But what it also enables you to do, it enables you to refer back, and Demon Monkey kind of referred to this, it enables you to kind of refer back to the evidence that you've used to actually make you that you've used to form your decisions. And I think that would be a valuable process to take into account. The other side of this is in terms of these discussions that we've got in terms of legal representation. I know there's been words used to describe the approach that's been taken to, if you like, refine the organisations that we're going to potentially kind of approach or use, if you like, such as Horizons. I think in terms of communicating with the community, it'd probably come across a bit better if actually the people that was communicated with, them people were kind of discussed, if you like. Okay, because I could stand there and say, well, I've consulted with all manner of people in all manner of different areas and levels within the kind of within the community, and it's meaningless really, because there's nothing to actually to kind of pin your sail to, so to speak. So in terms of that, some of the things that I would find useful to be able to answer in terms of how we came up, let's say, with the horizons is such as within our development group, Terra Vita. I mean, we're coming up with Terraport, which is, we like to think of it as the community DEX, if you like, and we've got various other projects as well. However, we're European. Okay, so the SEC, as far as I am aware, doesn't rule the world. They might think that they do, and there might be a lot of risk there for people that are maybe operating in America. But what I would want to know from a a company that represents us legally, is what experience they've got in other legal jurisdictions and where they see, other opportunities, if you like, for us. Also, as part of that, certainly, I mean, I had a very brief exchange of a few emails. Messages with Ed, but it was, it's more Ed being polite to me rather than it being consultation as such. I'm just wondering what breadth of consultation you took with the wider community in terms of drawing your conclusions that this particular legal entity was the right company to use or to consider in terms of a legal counsel, so to speak.
If I can just add in a few comments here. First of all, mate, thank you for coming up, and thank you for everything that you do. I think in general you have some good points. I'm just going to take the perspective of a technician here. I think when we have these type of debates that we have right now, they're all in the realm of management. And I don't know any good developers who just don't turn around and run in the opposite direction the second these debates they start. So this is why I've been very sort of focused on saying, let the L1 team be a development team. We have our own private Slack channels where we have other devs and we can geek out. And then let's bring all of these great ideas into the context of the governing body, like in this case, I guess it's the TGF, but if we're going to, dissolve that over time or do something else, I don't know. And then this is also why we have been, talking about, or I've been sort of asking you about, could you maybe want to be interested in coming in and having some sort of bi-weekly community working group within the umbrella of the TGF, because I do believe we need these things because we have a lot of untapped resources, but we really need to sort of try to partition the discussion around the technology component, which is what I, try to protect and guard with my life. And then the other debate, which is equally important, but which typically scares away the technicians, that you're bringing up now around, how are we managing these things? How are we documenting them for posterity? How do we make sure that we have compliance and all of that? And I think that is a debate worth having, but it's probably a debate that should take place in the TGF with different representatives so we can come to some sort of conclusion on, just like we had a white paper on the burn tax, and I'm trying to get Duncan to do a white paper on the SIGI thing with regards to the economics of it. Maybe we can have a white paper on how we want our community to manage itself, right? And that might be what we should be doing in this context to address these very valid concerns and be able to leverage all this extra knowledge that we have in the management section.
Yeah, and I don't, a white paper on it'd probably be useful. I don't think it's something that we would easily solve overnight. I think there'll be a lot of views on this, and I think there'll be probably fears and anxieties as well. However, from my own perspective, risk management is something I've been doing for donkey's years. What I've always found, unfortunately, it goes hand in hand with risk management, is often it's perceived that risk management gets in the way of production and progress. So from my perspective, the L1 team is, if you like, hired to deliver the technological improvements, if you like, and maintenance. However, in terms of demonstrating compliance, which unfortunately, working so you are compliant is a proactive thing. Once you're essentially challenged by a legal authority in whatever way that may be, then it becomes a reactive thing in terms of demonstrating that, well, these are the things that we took into account, so therefore that determined the reasonably practical things that we could do to ensure that we was legally compliant, in the past.
I totally agree with that.
And I don't think the burden that necessarily should sit with the L1 team, because I think that would be a waste of resources.
No, I totally agree. Also, because from our point of view, we often marvel at this, consensus compliance debate, because it's built into our world. It's called a pull request, right? When we make changes to the system, we have to create a pull request. People we consider peers, they come in and they, evaluate the changes, and then we all agree, and that becomes a consensus decision. So the process of building consensus is built into our workflow. And I think what you're very much saying, which I totally support here, is that we should be working in the same way at the management level towards always building consensus in the community. And this is why I'm always pushing people who have ideas back out and say, it's a great idea, but it all starts with consensus amongst the investors, because we're all going to be, a general partnership when the US courts are done with all their rulings, which means that we have to start acting as such, right? That means like general investment meetings where we agree on yearly plans, blah, 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 all these different things. But there are people in this ecosystem that are much better at doing that than me. So I really just want to protect my devs and make sure that we can do what we're good at, and then have a clear list of goals from our consensus body in terms of what we should be focusing our time and effort on.
Okay, thank you, Rexy. I just want to do a quick time check. We need to move on to the remainder of questions, because we're running. I have to close this AMA in a few minutes, and I'd like to get to the speakers that are remaining.
Hi, can I?
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, because I've been waiting for so long. Just a suggestion. I think in future, right, when it comes to monthly AMA, can we probably limit the time, like maybe to 5 minutes, as to how long a speaker can speak, and also on the time taken per topic? Because I see that there's so much time taken by just one speaker, and we keep going around and around the same thing on the same topic. This AMA is like once a month, and many of us here would be interested to know like other questions. And I suppose there are other people out there who has been raising their hand or putting up the request to want to speak, to get to want to ask questions, but they don't get the chance. Likewise, I think last month I had wanted to do the same. Likewise, last month I had wanted to do the same, but the chance has always been given to the same people. All right. Anyway, I have a question for Ed, since Ed, you're here, right? Okay. So last week Ed has posted a Medium article, right? On last week, and there was some speculation after that he may be leaving us or not. So since Ed is here, I would like to specifically hear from Ed on this matter. Can he share with us? Is he still living? I mean, is he still staying in the team with us, or is he leaving? And secondly, Ed, can you probably share with us, right, how you think AI and machine learning is going to help propel Lunar Classic going forward? Thank you.
Thank you. I'd love to. Okay, so let me just first take us all the way back to when I first got into crypto, and this was several years ago. So I am a machine learning AI person, and the equipment that we need to train these models are GPUs, these graphics processing units. And so when I went to sort of go out and buy one, I couldn't find them, right? Because they were all sold out. There was a chip shortage. And in fact, all the miners, Ethereum miners, had taken up all the GPUs, right? So I started getting into this question of like, how can we, and then I was looking at the consensus mechanism of Ethereum and what's going on, and sort of the complaints of the general community at large, saying like, oh, it's a waste of energy and that sort of thing. And so I was looking at, how is there a way that we might be able to combine sort of the consensus mechanisms or utilize that power of the largest GPU decentralized cloud compute in the world for AI, right? So that was the original question I came into this whole space. And then, of course, with the DPEG and sort of the the need I felt there was in Luna Classic. I sort of went down this journey, and honestly, I didn't know how to achieve what when I first sort of had this idea. I didn't know. It was only through sort of this process of growing with this community. I was like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I understand proof of stake. I see how Ethereum went to proof of stake, and now there's a deficiency of sort of the miner usage. Can we repurpose it somehow within the Cosmos framework? And so things began to click, right? And so and I sort of done a proof of not proof, a sort of minimal viable sort of experiment to see, oh wait, this actually could work out, right? And so I think the missing piece of everything was like, well, how does this integrate with Luna Classic, right? Because if you're doing like an application specific chain, then you're off chain, right? That's where what was interesting is something called IBC, right? So IBC is just a inner blockchain protocol communication mechanism. Most of us know IBC is just sort of the simple case, right, where you send your tokens to another blockchain and it just lives there. But there was a let's see, a new protocol on top, ICS 27, I believe, that came out last year, and it's been it's been under the radar because it's sort of difficult to integrate. It's called interchain accounts, and the idea is more of a symbiotic relationship between blockchains, where there's going to be something called a controller chain and a host chain, and you can think of it almost like, I think of it with, whenever my mom, she has problems with her computer, right? What I need to do in order to fix that is to VPN in or do some sort of control of her computer and then figure out what the problem is, right? So basically what ICA does, it grants one blockchain complete control over the other blockchain or the accounts on another blockchain. So anything that you want to do can be done on the controller chain. So the controller chain essentially has control over the host chain, right? And then so in that case with this ICA, and you're seeing a lot of this come out now. There's like liquid staking across blockchains. There's the Alliance module from Terra Money, which is also sort of this a change in the way ICA works, right? So it's their sort of advancement on ICA. And so in the same way, I see the possibilities of doing a controller host type of framework within Luna Classic. So Luna Classic, when one of the goals of Classic, right, one of the goals moving forward here is obviously the repeg, right? But another one is utility. And what do we mean by utility? It's that we want people to come on chain, we want people to use a chain, make transactions. And with ICA, the interesting thing is it's completely seamless to the user that they're actually interacting. So they're going to use like the TerraStation plugin, TerraStation wallet, all that stuff, but they don't even realize that they're controlling a different chain through that protocol. And so I think that's that was the missing piece. How can you interact with a different blockchain in that way? And then it goes down to the machine learning. So machine learning has gone through this exponential craze in the past couple years, but really it sort of took flight in the past couple months with ChatGPT and these large language models. Now the interesting thing about ChatGPT and OpenAI is the fact that model needs 2,000 GPUs to train, to even begin to think about training something like that. You need all this data, you need all this compute. I think OpenAI spent maybe $15 million on training the predecessor to ChatGPT, the GPT-3 model, and there's no company or government or university in the world that can compete with Microsoft, Google, and Facebook. These are the only three entities in the world that are able to train these things because they have the compute power. And so the goal ultimately right? First is make it seamless that you can do these inference tasks. So inference tasks, just like you can interface with machine learning, whether it's like a classification task, whether it's maybe doing it like a chatbot type of thing. Also, if you're familiar with like the Mid-Journey and the Stable Diffusion type of techniques that have really popped up, there's these are generative AIs where you can just sort of give it a prompt and it gives you an image. Like these things are very simple inference tasks that we can do on a sidechain and have a transaction on Terra Classic control that. But then there's sort of the bigger idea of like, okay, once we can demonstrate that we can have this capability, can we scale up that component to the training phase, which is I think is the hard part, and that's sort of multi-year type of endeavor. But can we get the largest decentralized GPU cluster in the world again, and this time on an app chain in the Cosmos? I think that's so that's sort of the long term, and the short term is the controller host with Terraclass. Hopefully that answers your question.
Hey, Ed, just I think just a reminder, the other question was, are you going anywhere? That was the main question.
Where is the... Can you say that again? Sorry, I don't know where my audio is coming from.
I think the other question is, Ed, many of us want to know if, are you going anywhere or are you going to continue staying with us? Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I don't know what going somewhere means. When it means like I'm going to focus on a different project. I think that's true. I'm moving towards utility rather than sort of the L1 maintenance and coding. I think as I said, sort of as we started this thing, I've really seen the growth of the younger guys. I've seen, obviously Tobias, he's an old man, just like me. But I've seen the team gel, and I think they have it under control, more than under control. They don't actually need me anymore, and so I think my efforts would be much better suited for like a utility vision. And that vision has to merge with this, my own expertise. Otherwise, I've been thinking a lot about the repeg, but I'm not a financial engineer, right? I'm a machine learning person, and so the best way that I think I could contribute is through a machine learning utility play.
And I just wanted to add one thing. When Ed, myself, and Tobias spoke, we kind of talked about it and joked that Ed is we're kind of looking. We had talked about including everything all in the L1 team, but we don't want to mix. We've got a very good process for very specific tasks that we have on our board. And so really it's more akin to, we want Ed to have his own office. So it's almost like he's moving in the office next door, or he's moving to the cubicle beside us, but really he's not going anywhere. He's just working on a different project within the same group. But I'm going to walk over and tap him on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Ed, I've written this proposal. Can you please wordsmith it for me? I've already warned him that I'm going to be doing this." And likewise, when it comes time to test, we may pull him in for different pieces. And on the flip side, I'm going to be, and Tobias will be popping in on that side, providing some architecture and advice that way, and then I'm going to also hopefully assist if there's any need for any of the day-to-day stuff. So we're all still in the same, so long story short, Ed's not going anywhere. He's just moving to the cube down the hall or beside us. So that's kind of the best way. Actually, I said we're giving him the nice ocean view, big office window overlooking the ocean.
He's going
but we're
into
not
the
far
basement.
from where.
Don't lie. I'm just kidding.
He's got the ocean view. We're taking the basement, but that's okay. Ivan, I think you were first, and then Jerry, and then I apologize. After that, I am going to have to close the space.
I think Patrick was first.
Oh, sorry. That's okay. Then we'll let Patrick go first. After those three questions, I will have to close the space. Anybody who's got their hands up or requested, my DMs are open. Please email me or DM me your questions, and I will respond directly. Happy to answer any questions. And I can also share those questions. If you share them via DM, I can share the questions and answers.
Listen, Long, I have some extra time because my teenager hasn't turned up yet, so I can keep the space running if people want to stick around for more technical questions.
Oh, that's wonderful. Then that is great. Then there's another 4 or 5 people that wanted to request, so that would be great. Yeah. But my DMs are still open. Please, Patrick, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for organizing this, and thank you for all the work done on our coin. My question and comment is just fairly short, but I want to have your opinion about the validators which we have and their activity regarding our governance. Because recently it looks to me like for some of the proposals, there hasn't been a lot of voting, and I'm a bit concerned that sometimes for good proposals, we will not reach quorum. Does any one of you have an opinion about that?
Yeah, I think Pandora's the next one.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. Okay,